Good morning, and welcome to Treetops Raceway Park, where Merch by Meekin is the sponsor of the 70 years of the Corvette Diecast Racing Tournament. This tournament is to celebrate the 70-year anniversary of the Chevrolet Corvette, with the first models being built in 1953, with the current mid-engine model in 2023. Treetops Raceway Park is home of the crossover. We look forward to showing off some of the signs that Merch by Meekin has supplied. They also do t-shirts. They are now doing balsa wood buildings with workable doors. They do glassware and any other promotional products that you might think of. Now we're back at the track. We see Group 5 standing next to their cars at the start-finish line. We have Group 6 in tech. And we do have the banana car here again today, giving rides. Our first responders are there. We have Food Truck Alley going. And we have the Founders Beer Tent. Here are the top 10 track times. So to get on the board, you got to knock numbskull off with a 9.593 or better. And now here's introductions of Heat 5. Scotty from Necco Racing Team in Luxembourg in a Hot Wheels 1969 Copo Corvette at 44.6 grams. Arlo from Arlo Racing from the USA in a Hot Wheels 1984 Corvette at 58.0 grams. Giorgio from G-Force Racing from the USA is driving a Hot Wheels Corvette C6 convertible at 58.6 grams. And Chowhound from Chowhound Racing and Diecast from the USA, he'll be sporting a Hot Wheels 1962 Corvette Gasser at 42.9 grams. And here we go for Heat 5, Race 1. We have Arlo and Scotty in the front row, Giorgio and Chowhound in the back row. And they're off. Looks like Scotty's got a decent lead. Arlo comes on the inside, gets tapped, he gets flipped over. Chowhound's behind him. We have Scotty and Giorgio. Scotty's pulling away slightly. It looks like Scotty will lead them into the final turn. With Giorgio in tow, Scotty gets a little sideways, but keeps it under control, and Scotty will take the win with Giorgio. Chowhound and Arlo do get a DNF, with Arlo on his roof. See if Larry can get Arlo flipped back over and get them both back to the pit area. Right here you see Giorgio comes down and clips. Looks like we lost a camera guy as well. And the rest of the race is pretty much a straight line from Scotty and Giorgio, just running 1-2 to get to the finish line. Right there you see Scotty does get a little squirrely with his nose pointed up going into the turn, but gets it straightened back out and does take the win, even though Giorgio made a last minute attempt. A 10.628 for Scotty. So Scotty will take the points lead with 5, Giorgio with 3, Arlo and Chowhound both with 0. And here we go with Heat 5, Race 2. We have Scotty and Giorgio in the front row, and Arlo and Chowhound in the back row, and they're off. And it looks like Giorgio is going to get a nice hole shot. Oh! Arlo punched Scotty in the back and got him up beside, and then Giorgio pushes him off the track and flips him over. Arlo gets a little squirrely there. Giorgio is leading them into the final turn. Arlo is in second. And then here comes Chowhound. It'll be Giorgio, Arlo, and Chowhound, with Scotty up in the straightaway on his roof for a DNF. Larry's going to be busy today, looks like. Here they come. You see Arlo gets and pushes Scotty, and Giorgio comes down to cut him off and puts him on the wall and flips him over. Chowhound pushes him down the track a little bit. Right there you saw Arlo get up on the wall a little. But Giorgio is going to just take it easy, take it smooth. And you see Arlo give it the gas and get a little sideways. And Giorgio says, oh, that's a little too close for comfort. And Giorgio will take them into the final turn. Maintain a nice line. He gets a little pinball action going across the finish line. Here comes Arlo for second, and Chowhound fastly coming in for third. A 10.404 for Giorgio. So Giorgio with 8, Scotty with 5, Arlo with 3, and Chowhound with 2. Heat 5, race 3. We have Giorgio and Chowhound in the front row, Scotty and Arlo in the back row. And they're off. Looks like Chowhound's going to pull the whole shot, followed by Arlo. Arlo gets sideways, collects Giorgio. Scotty gets up on the wall and stuck. Chowhound is going to take off and leave everybody while they're messing around, banging around with each other. And looks like Arlo and Giorgio are going to come in third and fourth. Chowhound will take them to the final turn, and he will come in for the win. Arlo will come in for second with a hard charge in Giorgio for third. Scotty gets a DNF, and we'll get his car once again towed back to the pit area. Right there you see all the melee of everybody wanting the same real estate on that racetrack. Chowhound with that gasser just takes off and leaves everybody, while Arlo and Giorgio sort out second and third. Chowhound for the win. Arlo and Giorgio. Got a 10.673 for Chowhound. So now we will see Giorgio in the lead with 10, Chowhound in second with 7, Arlo in third with 6, and Scotty with 5 in fourth. Heat 5, race 4. We'll put Chowhound and Arlo on the front row, followed by Giorgio and Scotty in the back row, and they're off. And Arlo is going to take off and get the whole shot here, followed by Chowhound, and then Giorgio just cuts off Scotty, gets in the back of Chowhound, but Arlo is going to take off and lead them. Oh, he hits the turn real weird and gets spun around backwards. He goes up onto the track and off and hits some of the spectator vehicles. Chowhound gets sideways and collects Giorgio. Scotty catches up and gets on the wall, and he gets stuck. And Giorgio will take second. We have a DNF for, actually it's a double DNF for Arlo and Scotty. Get the crews to get Arlo and Scotty back in the pit area, and we'll see where this points thing shakes out. Right here you see Giorgio gets under Scotty with a nice run. Then he comes up and taps Chowhound, getting him sideways coming into that straightaway. Arlo is checking out. And Arlo comes down and just clips the wall in the turn. Right behind the timer. And he gets spinning and gets up on the wall and hits that Cyclone and then the Chevy pickup truck. And then right there you see Chowhound gets completely sideways and Giorgio gets into him and Scotty's still going. And right here you see Scotty get up on the wall and gets one tire over and then gets wedged into the rally track finish. So 11.369 for Chowhound. So that'll shake up the points. Giorgio will have 13, Chowhound with 12, Arlo with 6, and Scotty with 5. So Giorgio and Chowhound will be moving on to the quarterfinals. And now for Heat 6 introductions. Bay City Darrell from Bay City Diecast Racing from the USA. He will be in a Hot Wheels 2005 Corvette C6R at 59.9 grams. Papa Pugsley from Manchild Motorsports from the USA in a Hot Wheels 1963 Corvette Stingray at 41.0 grams. Gridline from Neon Outsiders Racing, also from the US, in a Hot Wheels 2015 Corvette Z06 at 55.5 grams. And then we have Puff from Puffs Racing from the US, in a Hot Wheels 1963 Corvette Grand Sport Roadster at 46.1 grams. And now for Heat 6 Race 1, you have Papa Pugsley and Bay City Darrell in the front row, Puff and Gridline in the back row, and they're off. Looks like Bay City Darrell is going to pull the whole shot, followed by Papa Pugsley. Papa Pugsley gets beside Bay City Darrell, and everybody's got Bay City sideways. They're getting back straight around. All three cars crash. Bay City keeps going. This is Bay City Darrell's race to win or lose. What? Oh, wow. He clips the corner and gets to spinning and flipping. And we will have a quadruple DNF. Right here you see everybody getting by Gridline on the inside. And then Papa Pugsley gets on the outside of Darrell and kicks him sideways. And then Gridline goes around everybody on the outside to come in and give Darrell a push while Papa Pugsley's pushing him. And then Puff tries to get in on the action. And everybody goes off in the turn, straightening Darrell out so he can continue on. All Darrell had to do was cross that finish line for the win. But no, Bay City Darrell had to do some crazy acrobatic stunts. Watch this as he goes into the final turn. He tries to cut the inside corner a little too tight and gets up on the curb right there and spins and flips. I do not know how he stayed on the track. So here's race 6, Heat 6, race 1, restart. Same order, and they're off. Looks like Bay City's going to pull the whole shot. Once again, followed by Papa Pugsley, and then Puff. Papa Pugsley gets sideways and loses both positions. Puff gets sideways. Gridline catches Puff, but can't get by. It'll be Puff and Gridline. We lose Papa Pugsley there in that turn. He goes off the track. Bay City Darrell leads them into the final turn, getting a wheel hop off of the bump. He will finish, followed by Puff. And Gridline loses momentum in the final turn. And Gridline will get a DNF. So we have a double DNF, and Papa Pugsley will also have a DNF. So see if we can get all these cars back up to the start line. Right here you see Puff is pushing Papa Pugsley. Gets a nice run. Ooh, right there you see Papa Pugsley gets completely up in the air. Spinning him around, losing all momentum. And right here you see Puff gets up in the air. I don't know what it is about these vets, but some of these cars are flying. And I don't mean fast on the track, I mean in the air. And right here you see where Papa Pugsley comes around and he gets off the track and just loses all momentum and is stuck. And right there you see Bay City Darrell hits the bump. Oh, there you see Gridline gets completely sideways right after the spectators' trucks and loses all his momentum and stalls out in the corner. 11.324 for Bay City Darrell. So that'll give Bay City Darrell 5 points, Puff with 3, and Papa Pugsley and Gridline with 0. Now we have Heat 6, Race 2. We have Bay City Darrell and Gridline in the front row, Papa Pugsley and Puff in the back row, and they're off. Looks like Gridline might have the whole shot here. He does. No, he doesn't. He had it, but Bay City Darrell got around him on the inside with a nice run and a tap from whoever was behind him. I think it was Puff. He decides to go down backwards with Gridline giving him a little nudge. Here comes Papa Pugsley playing pinball. Here's Bay City Darrell coming in backwards, followed by Gridline. And here comes Papa Pugsley. It'll be Bay City Darrell, Gridline in second. Here comes Papa Pugsley. Oh, and he gets up on the wall and stalls out. And Puff got flipped up on his side up in the lane automotive turn. So we have a double DNF. Papa Pugsley and Puff. Get old Puff checked out. He's driving a convertible, so got to make sure that roll cage held out. And then you have Papa Pugsley down here getting taken care of. Sorry. Right there you see Darrell gets on the inside of Puff and Gridline, gets by both of them. Gridline gets pushed up on the curb. And they spin Bay City Darrell, and Puff gets on the inside of Gridline. Right there is where Puff got flipped up on his side. And Bay City Darrell continues on down by himself, and here comes Gridline, and here comes Papa Pugsley. Here you see Gridline getting a run. Gives Bay City Darrell a tap on the nose. That gets Bay City going. And here comes Papa Pugsley, and he starts bouncing. Look how much air he gets. Right in front of the Vapor Racing sign. And then again. And there's Bay City leading them into the final turn, followed by Gridline. And then here comes Papa Pugsley. And Gridline is barely creeping across the line. Papa Pugsley gets a little sideways, and that's what causes him to go up on the wall right there. A 13.030 for Bay City Darrell. So that'll put Bay City Darrell at 5. Gridline at 3. Puff at 3. And Papa Pugsley at 0. So here we go with Heat 6, Race 3. You have Gridline and Puff in the front row, Bay City Darrell and Papa Pugsley in the back row, and they're off. Looks like Puff's gonna get the whole shot, followed by Gridline, then Bay City Darrell, then Papa Pugsley. Gridline gets a run on the inside, gets by Puff. Gridline will take them down into the final turn. Bay City Darrell gets on the inside and gets up on his side and somehow gets the car flipped back onto its wheels and will take third. So you have Gridline, Puff, and Bay City Darrell, and Papa Pugsley got a DNF, kicked completely sideways up in the turn straightaway just after the lane automotive turn. Right here you see Bay City gets by Papa Pugsley and then taps Gridline, giving Gridline a little boost of speed. He gets a nice run, gets on the inside of Puff as Puff goes high. That was a nice pass, very little contact. You see Puff bouncing a little bit, and he allows Bay City Darrell to get on the inside, but Bay City must have clipped something because he gets completely on the side and goes on the side all the way down the straightaway into the final turn before he flips back onto his wheels. And you have Gridline, Puff, and then here comes Bay City Darrell for third. A 10.494 for Gridline. So with that, Bay City Darrell maintains his lead with 12. Gridline jumps into second with 8, and Puff in third with 6, and Papa Pugsley with 0. Now we have Puff and Papa Pugsley on the front row, Gridline and Bay City Darrell in the back row. They're off. It looks like Puff is going to pull the whole shot. I don't know what happened to Papa Pugsley, but he got completely sideways, but he just lost Gridline over on his roof. Darrell got by Papa Pugsley, and they're rubbing on each other. Going into the final turn, it'll be Puff. And then here will come Bay City Darrell. They're way back there. Here comes Bay City Darrell and Papa Pugsley. Bay City Darrell will come in, get a little sideways. Once again, Papa Pugsley stopped in the exact same spot as last time. A double DNF for Gridline and Papa Pugsley. See if we can get those cars flipped back over or back to the pits. Look at this replay. You see on the outside, Puff gets a nice run on Papa Pugsley and gets by. Right there, Papa Pugsley hits the wall and gets up on two wheels. Gridline comes in and hits Bay City, gets him sideways. They all lose some momentum. But Papa Pugsley and Darrell keep enough to get through the turn. And right here you see Gridline just did not have enough momentum to get through the turn and rolls over. And somehow Bay City Darrell got by Papa Pugsley in the turn that was out of the view of the camera. Then Papa Pugsley tries to slow him down on the curb. Puff gets a nice run going into the final turn. Takes the turn high, comes out, straightens it out, and comes across to take his win. Here we go, guys. Come on, anytime now. Here they come. Here comes Bay City Darrell and Papa Pugsley. Bay City taking them into the turn. Maintaining a nice line, gets a little sideways coming out. But Papa Pugsley is slowing down and turns and heads straight for the wall. And he gets that front end right up on top of the wall. An 11.011 was the lap time. And with that, Bay City Darrell will have 15, Puff 11, and Gridline with 8. Papa Pugsley did not complete a lap today. So Bay City Darrell and Puff will be moving on to the quarterfinals. We congratulate Giorgio, Chowhound, Bay City Darrell, and Puff for moving on to the quarterfinals. Thanks for all those that have entered cars. Please hit the like button, and subscribe so you don't miss any other races. And as always, thanks for watching.